I'm going to lay down my sword and shield. Powerful words, deep, profound words, yes? Talk about strength. Well, we're going to talk about strength today. And I'm going to talk fairly briefly because there's one overarching point that I want us all to hear today. First of all, I woke up yesterday. I had a talk ready to go. It happens that way sometimes. But I woke up yesterday morning earlier than usual, and I was feeling uneasy. I was feeling disturbed. There were things bothering me and pulling at me. And in the midst of that, I heard three little words. Three little words, and they changed my perspective, and I had to dig a little deeper to think about what that meant. So I'm going to share those words in a minute, but first, I'm going to share a little foundation and context and tell you a little something about where I'm coming from. All right? To begin with, I am a follower of Jesus. Period. Full stop. I am a follower of Jesus. I do not claim to be a very good follower of Jesus because it is a challenging and difficult and gnarly thing to do. I do my best, not 100%. Anybody else? Okay, because we're going to dig into that just a little bit. What I mean when I say I'm a follower of Jesus may be different from what anybody else in this room would say. And I have a feeling that it's a little bit different than what the most widely accepted interpretation of those words would be in the world today. Fair enough? I'll give you a variation on that in a minute. I understand that as I understand it. And I can say the same thing about the Bible as a whole. You see, I see the Bible as poetry and metaphor and incredible words that have deeper meanings that are beyond the words themselves. Everything in the Bible, be it a story or an example or a parable, always circles around the idea that there's a higher dimension. Are we on the same page so far? Okay, and if you think about it, now there are some things in the Bible that are actual literal history. And the deeper the archaeologists and the scholars go into that, particularly in the Hebrew scriptures, the more they see. But overall, the Bible is a super complex, it's not just one book. As a matter of fact, it did not become one book until the invention of the printing press. It's a whole bunch of books that were written over a period of hundreds, if not thousands of years by a bunch of different people. And yet it all hangs together. How incredible is that? So yeah, I may see it differently than you or somebody else. It's a big old Rorschach test, but it's beautiful, it's incredible. And so yeah, I'm a follower of Jesus. And like I say, that ain't easy. That is absolutely not easy. I'll give you an example. In Holland, in the 16th century, there was a religious group, a sect called the Mennonites. There are Mennonites who live here now. I think of them as being somewhat related to the Amish. I'm not sure. Is that oversimplifying it? But okay, more or less. Lovely people, wonderful people. But if you were a Mennonite in Holland in the 16th century, you were an oppressed minority. You were considered to be a heretic, and you could be convicted of heresy and sentenced to death. All right? A guy named Dirk Willems, it's a real guy, you can Google this, it's a pretty fascinating story, was a leader of the Mennonites, and he was a deeply, deeply committed Christian as he understood it, although his understanding was different from that of the prevailing winds of the time. In 1569, he was convicted of heresy and sentenced to death. Well, he was in jail, and one day he managed to break out. He broke a window and he ran away across a frozen lake, and a guard chased him. The guard, I guess, weighed a lot more than Dirk Willems because he fell through the ice, and Dirk Willems had a choice to make. Right, you all went, oh my God, could I have done that? Well, he did. He went back. He pulled that guy out of the ice just in time for the other guards to come along, rearrest him over the objections of the guard who had been chasing him. They put him back in jail, and sure enough, not too long after that, he was executed by being burned alive at the stake. He followed Jesus. Jesus' teachings are challenging, yes? Sometimes they're opaque, Sometimes they're mysterious. Sometimes he speaks in parables and stories because he wanted people to either understand in a different way or to dig deeper into their own hearts and minds to understand. These three little words that I referred to earlier are not opaque. They're not hard to understand. They are direct, unambiguous, clear. And the words are these: resist not evil. Is that easy to do? Is it easy to even contemplate? As it turned out, my initial remembering of those words was not exact. It turns out that the King James Version does say that. Every other translation and version that I could find, and I Google, said, resist not the evil doer. Don't resist the evil person. Now, you see, that's an important distinction from a unity point of view, because in unity, we don't actually believe in or accept the reality of evil as an organized power. All right? If you believe that there is God and only God, and there is no place where God is not, there's no room in there for an opposing force. All right? There is no bad angel. There is no Satan. There is no organized power that we can call evil. You know what the however is, right? People do some evil stuff. And it's usually because they've forgotten who they are. It's usually because they've forgotten their source, forgotten their connection with God. So, where does that leave us? Jesus says, do not resist the evildoer. I'll give you the whole verse, okay? By the way, I have several Bibles at home, including one that my mom gave me like 50 years ago. I'll keep that forever. This is a New Revised Standard Version. It's a study Bible, which means there's a lot of commentary, and it's, as far as I know, it's the latest understanding of what the reality of the Bible is. Does that make sense? There have been lots of translations and mistranslations and maybe even some distortions over the years. Who am I to say, but I think that's the case. This one is pretty clear. And the commentary is from 75 scholars from all different walks of life, Christian and Jewish, conservative to liberal, and everything in between. So, with that said, in Matthew 5:69, Jesus doesn't just jump right into don't resist evil. He starts by giving us something that is common sense that we all know is true, and it's always been true, and he says, He says, you have heard it, that it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, right? It's how it's supposed to be, you know. You hit me, I hit you, vice versa. Jesus says no. Here's the verse in question. But I say to you, do not resist an evildoer, but if anyone strikes you on the right cheek, turn the other also. And if anyone wants to sue you, and take your coat, give your cloak as well. And if someone forces you to go 1 mile, go also the 2nd mile. Give to anyone who begs of you, and do not refuse anyone who wants to borrow from you. Did I say this was challenging? Yeah, I'll take the opportunity. We got bags and bags of cough drops up here. It's a thing with choirs. All right. Blessings, blessings, blessings. A difficult teaching. A difficult teaching. What are we going to do with it? There are situations, a guy gets drunk, and he goes home, and he hits his wife in the face. Is she going to turn the other cheek and say, hit me again? Is she going to call the cops? Is she going to leave the house? Is she going to get a gun and shoot him dead? These things happen every single day. A couple of you are going, gun, shoot, yeah. These things happen every single day. Whatever the outcome is, it doesn't necessarily change the underlying consciousness of the person who did the hitting in the first place. That takes something else, okay? Let me go to a whole other extreme. 2 generations ago, our parents and grandparents resisted evil by fighting and defeating the Nazis. Was that a just war, like St. Augustine said way back in the 4th century? Most of us would say yes. Most of us would say, hallelujah, I'm glad that they did that, as difficult as it was. It didn't necessarily fix the underlying consciousness that led us to that war in the first place. Albert Einstein said, problems cannot be solved with the same mindset that created them. Okay? Problems cannot be solved with the same mindset that created them. So here's what I want us to understand today. It's just this simple little bit. If you just hear this and take this home, the only thing that will prevail in the face of darkness and hatred and, yes, evil is an awakening of consciousness in all of humanity. That's it. That's all there is. Nothing less will do. And it has to be all the way, the whole thing. The only thing that will prevail in the face of darkness, hatred, and evil is an awakening of consciousness in all of humanity. Back in the 90s, there was a rock band called The Police. You may remember them. They sold a couple of records along the way, and they had a song that said, "There's no political solution for our troubled evolution. We are spirits in the material world, our spirits in the material world, our spirits in the material world." You see, every problem is a consciousness problem. Every solution is a consciousness solution. That's the beginning and the end of it. Do what you have to do. Follow Jesus the best you can, the best way you understand. And remember that the awakening of your spirit, my spirit, our spirit is what we're here for. This is my good word for you today, for you to remember today and in the days to come. We are awakening to our spiritual magnificence. Say it with me. We are awakening to our spiritual magnificence. One more time. We are awakening to our spiritual magnificence. This is our vision. This is our affirmation. This is our challenge. This is our calling to be the power of strength. This is our truth. May we remember it well. By the way, what was it about Dirk Williams and the Mennonites that made them heretics in the eyes of the established church? They were pacifists. Wow. Ultimately, true strength, the power of strength, the only strength, is an attribute of God that lies within us humans too, ready to be awakened into a full flowering of who we really are. Say it with me one more time. We are awakening here to our spiritual magnificence, and so it is. Amen.